All right, class, got to solve by what's called square root method right here, right now. I got a couple tricks I got to show you. All right, first off, whatever's squared, your x is squared, you got to get him by himself. So that 16 has got to go. So grab the 16, let's get it out of there. Okay, so grab your x, it's squared. Whatever's squared has to be all by itself. Once you've accomplished that, which you've done, bring in the square roots. So this is x squared. We want to unsquare it. To accomplish that, you got to take the square root. But it is math class. So if you take square root of one side, you must also take square root of the other side. Now, every time that you bring in the square roots, there were no square roots before, you brought them in, you have to bring in a thing called plus or minus. So that's the biggest deal of all the big deals on this video. Don't forget bringing in plus or minus. All right, so here we go. We've got x squared, we got negative 16. You're loving this right here. The square root and the squared, the square root and the squared, they just cancel each other out, and all you have is this x. All right, plus or minus negative 16. Now, we know what's going on here. You're like, yep, I know. That is a negative sign underneath the square root. I have to represent that with an I value. Let's get one more in here, like x is equal to plus or minus I square roots of 16. Okay, so I'm keeping my plus or minus. I now got an I, but I actually know the square root of 16. So plus or minus I square roots of 16. So square root of 16, that's just going to be 4. And how we write this, x is equal to two answers, a positive and a negative for I. All right, these are your problems today. Bringing in the square roots, big deal. Don't forget plus or minus. So when you bring in the square root, you got to have plus or minus. All right, I'm going to try to run 5 of these. Let's do a second one. Okay, number 2, x squared minus 3 equal to negative 28. All right, here's the story. X squared's got to be himself. Get rid of that 3. All right, once x squared is all by itself, then you bring in the square roots. Here's square root, here's square root. You just brought in square root. You have to remember to bring in plus or minus. It's the biggest deal of everything you're doing today. Don't forget plus or minus. All right, let's go. Negative 25. We love the left side. The square root and the squared cancel each out. It's just an x. Hey, look at this. We're like, oh, I know what's going on here. Plus or minus I square root of 25. So a negative underneath represents with an I value. So here we've got x plus or minus I square root of 25. You're like, yep, I know what's going on here. Square root of 25, that's just 5. So instead of writing it I5, let's put it in the correct order, plus or minus 5I. So it's like you have two answers there, a positive 5I and a negative 5I. All right, let's throw some tricks at you. That was number 2. Here's number 3. Oh, this one won't be too bad. X squared plus 10 equals negative 7. All right, again, trying to solve for x squared. Got to get the 10 out of there. So we've got x squared, we've got negative 7, negative 10. We clean that up. Boom. You have x squared all by itself. Now you bring in the square roots. Boom, boom. And remember, you brought in square root, you bring in plus or minus. X squared, this is awesome, negative 17. We love this one. The square root and the squared cancel each other out. It's awesome. Now you just have x all by itself. Oh, here we go, a negative sign. Boom, x is equal to the negative square root of 17, which becomes I square root of 17. Now sometimes this happens. You get a number like 17, and it's not like a cool number like 16, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 25 is 5. 17, not a square root, and then, oh, it doesn't even break down. Like, oh, so this is good news, bad news. So bad news is it doesn't break down. You don't have anything more to do with it. Good news is like, oh, there's nothing more to do. That's my answer. That's all she wrote. Okay, let's do one now where this does break down. Let's do a fourth example where we got to factor tree it at the end. All right, here we go. Number 4, 2x squared. Oh, wow, this has got a lot to it. 2x squared plus 14 equals negative 40. Okay, got to get the x squared by itself. Let's start by getting rid of the 14. Okay, so we're sitting right here. We got negative 40, we got negative 14, here's negative 54. Still the x squared is not by itself. Oh, there's a 2 right there we got to get rid of. So let's divide by 2, and now we have x squared equals negative 27. Finally, the x squared is by itself. When that happens, we can bring in our square roots. There were no square roots. You just brought in square root. You have to remember plus or minus. Big deal. Don't forget the plus or minus. Here's x squared. Here's negative 27. We love the left side. Square root squared. It cancels. All that's left is just your x. It's awesome. Oop, negative. Let's put an I value right there. So here we go. We got x is equal to plus or minus I square roots of 27. Got a little work to do here. Let me get this out of the way. Let's grab that 27 and let's factor tree that down. It's like 3, 9, 3, 3. So we're going to get rid of 27. We're going to replace it with the 3, 3, 3. So x is equal to plus or minus I, 3, 3, 3. And I think we know what's going on here. You're like, yep, these I got, Mr. Porter. I'm looking for 2 of a kind. A pair of 3s. Grab them, pull it out of there. Remember the rule, 2 on the inside. You only write it once on the outside. It's kind of weird. You got the plus or minus, you got the I, you're bringing out a 3. You're like, where do they all go, Mr. Porter? Put the plus or minus first, and then your 3, and then the I. So it actually sits in between the plus or minus and the I. And now you write your final answer, plus or minus 3i, square roots of 3. All right, so a lot to do on that problem. Lots of little steps. Let's do one more just like this to make sure we got it. All right, last one, number 5 here. 3x squared minus 4 equals negative 88. Okay, so on this problem, you got to get the x squared by itself. Let's get rid of the 4 right off the bat. So here we go. 3x squared, 4, aha, negative 88. There's a negative 84. Your x squared still has the 3. So it's not by itself until we get rid of the 3. Let's divide it out. Divide by 3, divide by 3. Boom. So you have x squared, you have negative 84 divided by 3. What is that, 28 times? I think so. All right, 28 times will work. So x squared, negative 28, dun, dun, dun. Now the x squared is all by itself. Let's bring in the square roots. Oh yeah. Bringing in those square roots. Here's x squared. Here's negative 28. We remembered the plus or minus. We've not forgotten yet. It's the biggest deal of the whole video. All right, I love this. The square root and square cancel out. That's just x. Oh, a negative sign. Represent your I. And then we can get to work. All right, let's bring this up here. Plus or minus I, square roots of 28. Now in 28, we do not have like an easy one like 49 or 3625, but we can break it down. So grab your 28. Let's do a factor tree of this. So okay, 2, 28, so 2, 14, 2, 7. So looking at 28, you've got 2, 2, 7. Okay, we are looking for pairs. We are looking for two of a kind. Here is a couple twos. And we remember the rule, 2 on the inside, once on the outside. So grab this, it's coming out, and you've got to find the right spot to put him in. There's the plus or minus, there's the I, where does the 2 go? So let's get him in the right spot. So x is equal to plus or minus 2i. So the 2 goes right there, in between the plus or minus and the I. So here's x, here's plus or minus 2i, square root of 7. And that is a correct answer. Okay, solving by square roots, don't forget that plus or minus.